I stand out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, I try to realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore. And this is exploration at its greatest.
And as well as a cute teddy bear, David Ivacic from, of course, Real Security is with me. FireEye is really important to you.
Yeah. It's a very important company. I would say very close to my heart also. Our company, Real Security, was always funded, I would say, or was funded and is based on technology. So from this respect, we always wanted to say, okay, we want to offer to the market technology that really is reliable, that we can trust on, that customers can trust on. And if we're talking about pioneers in some specific field, then this is the technology you can trust. And FireEye is definitely one of them. They I would say, grew or founded the company, built the technology by asking the customers, what is your problem that you can't resolve? And they did it from there. And from this, I would say, early stages of advanced threat prevention techniques that they almost, I would say, invented, grew to much and much more with additional services and stuff like this. But I'll let the guys from FireEye tell you more about this.
Very much part of the real story, of course.
Yeah,
and indeed,
definitely.
from FireEye, I'm welcome to present Michael and Marcin. Please, it's a great opportunity to have a little chat beforehand. David has painted you in great, bold, brilliant colors.
Yeah, I was listening to that, and thank you, David. And I really don't have much to add to that. I'm really happy. And we're trying indeed to be pioneers in new fields, in new areas that maybe haven't been addressed before or haven't been addressed in a way that would be good for our customers. So that's absolutely what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job at it. Keep on going.
Anything to add, Marcin?
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really excited. I'm a rookie guy. This is my first attendance in the Risk, so I'm really amazed by your event and really excited to be a part of that.
That's really cool. I mean, I have met Marcin before. I vaguely remember pro tennis, and I remember you were involved in some sort of martial art in Thai something. I can't remember the details.
Yeah, it's good memory, Chris. Actually, that was my part. Yeah, tennis before in my younger days, and then logically in my older days did some fighting, but I changed into more peaceful sports now.
You're just fighting about the bad guys in the internet world now.
As far as fighting, yes.
I'm really wondering, as I recall in the previous years, Michał had some really cool song selections. So I really wonder what the band prepared for them now.
Okay, it's band time.
I'm a power load. Watch where it's loud. TNT.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Cool.
The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, David. Okay, so and thank you most of all, everyone joining us here and having the patience on the second day to stay online with us. We'll try to make it as interesting as possible. And today we'll try to tackle, I think, one of the most underlooked problems in cybersecurity, which is the guessing game. Right. So many of our cybersecurity decisions are actually based on guessing because we don't have the right tools or methodology to put metrics into it, to quantify it, to qualify it. So we'll try to show you today how to change guessing into knowing together with Marcin. You might think it's a natural assumption that when you put some money or a lot of money into your cybersecurity, you combine it with the human effort, your security effectiveness will rise, will get higher, right? And you actually think, the more money you put, more effort you put, the results are getting better. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case, and there are several reasons why not. And I would like to ask everyone 4 questions that you could answer in your head. And if you answer 4 of them, if four of the answers or all of the answers will be yes, then you actually don't need to listen to this presentation. However, I haven't met anyone in the history of those questions that would answer yes to all of them. So question number 1, do you think that technologies always work 100% as vendors claim? Right, so there's a salesperson from a vendor. It says, okay, this is the list of all cool features, and they all work seamlessly. And this is actually what happens, right? So that's question number 1. Second question is, once you invest into a new technology, do you think you always deploy it and configure it perfectly, right? So in order with what you've assumed before the actual configuration. The third question is, do you think you have people that are skilled enough to handle a cybersecurity incident in the most effective way? Right? And the last question is, if you make a change to the environment, this change is always effective, is always well communicated and done perfectly. As I said, I've never met anyone that would answer yes. So we'll try to maybe help you with this issue. And I think the first thing that comes to your mind, how do I tackle these problems, right? How do I change assumptions into knowledge? I'll just do it myself. Why? Because I'm the best person to do it. I know exactly how my infrastructure looks like. I know exactly what I have. I know how it works. I'll just do it myself. Why not? So as an educated person, you'd probably think, okay, so what I need is a good action plan, right? So I have my objectives. I have my tools to do it. This is how I do it. This is when I'm going to do it. And this is how I'm going to measure it, right? Sounds easy. But I'm not a practitioner. Marcin is. So Marcin, as a cybersecurity practitioner, could you maybe walk us through how a potential action plan could look like?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So first of all, of course, for the purpose of this presentation, we will not be able to go through the complete action plan, but definitely we will focus on 2 parts. First part will be the content of your testing scenarios. And the second one will be focused on the results. So let's try together to list some requirements regarding what should be the expected output from our validation process. So first of all, definitely we would like to understand better and probably visualize how our security stack is coping with different type of threats. And please keep in mind, it should be compared to real world attacks. Why I'm saying that? We can clearly compare it to choosing your bulletproof vest. Would you prefer to use bulletproof vest certified and tested against real bullets? Or maybe it's enough to say that this vest is good enough for something very similar to bullets. It's totally different things. The next one, based on our validation process, we definitely would like to move from opinion world into fact world. So definitely we should get evidence-based results, which can give us action plan what to do better in the future to protect us better against those threats. And finally, if we spend a lot of time on preparing our test environment, on preparing our test scenarios, definitely it would be nice to map all of our actions to industry standards like MITRE. We are observing that nowadays more and more people are treating MITRE framework as some kind of the roadmap for their security plan for the next years. So why not include also MITRE statistics in our testing? So this was about the objectives and the results. But what about the test scenario? So we had quite a long discussion which type of the attack should be taken as a representative example. And after a while, we decided to use some of the infamous ransomware family, which is Ryuk. And there are a couple of reasons. As you see, I name it a ransomware revolution or evolution, if you will, because during last few years, definitely ransomware attacks has changed. And it's not anymore a simple attack, simple delivery of the payload. It's much more complicated. And based on that, we will try to guess how many steps does it take to install ransomware in your environment. So according to all statistics available in the market, we can clearly say that usually we start from the email. So let's start as a step one by sending an email probably with the attachment. And by the way, for each step, you can find on the bottom right, the small table mapping this step to three categories. First is referring to living of the land tactics. The second one refers to the malware itself. And the last one indicates that we are exploiting some kind of the vulnerability. It's just to show you that we can't focus only on malware side. It's not the malware itself anymore. So let's move further. After that, if we've got the attachment, we can use some kind of Word document weaponized with macro. Probably after decoding, this macro will run something. And in our case, we can rely on PowerShell execution, which in turn download Emotet. And let me stop for a second at the Emotet. According to FireEye statistics, during last quarter, Emotet was the most active malware family. So I'm pretty sure that you faced this malware at least a couple of times during the last few months. And the reason of that is, of course, the Emotet itself originally was created as a banking Trojan, but also it was weaponized in the ability to download additional stuff as a next steps after gaining the initial access. And if you browse a little bit, you can find a lot of articles pointing that the next step for Emotet would be a Trickbot Trojan. So let's find out what Trickbot will provide us with. So Trickbot can also be named as a banking Trojan, but this time it can be not only used to grab some additional information, but also to grab extra modules. So step 4 was downloading the Trickbot by Emotet. It clearly can test your network security controls. And the 5th step can be named Trickbot executes. So we can test and validate how well your endpoint security works. So what about modules for the Trickbot? We can use the pwgrab module, which is used to harvest credentials stored in your web browser. So as we all know, our users, they like to reuse their password. They are mixing and matching private stuff with enterprise system they've got. So most likely we can find some interesting credentials inside their browsers. So step 6 can be named Trickbot downloads modules to test your network security. And the next step, based on the credentials gathered from this endpoint, we can move to step 7, which is finally Ryuk pushed and run with PSEXEC. That refers clearly to ransomware revolution that we are observing, because it's not the time where attackers were sending thousands of emails with ransomware inside it. Instead of that, they prefer to choose the target very carefully, and after that, they are trying to spread out within the environment. So they are engaging the lateral movement phase as well. Finally, if we find our target, we can move to step 8, which would be the Ryuk execute. So finally, we can encrypt your data and probably go back to you with some ransom extortion. Okay, so we've got 8 steps. Michał, can you please sum it up?
Yeah, thank you, Marcin. So now at this point, you might actually think, 8 steps. Okay, it's a bit of an effort, right? But maybe it's worth doing. However, just bear in mind, right? We've just completed one single scenario, right? With a certain email sample, then adding attachment with macro sample, and then the actual delivery of Ryuk. However, what about different variants of Ryuk, right? The new variant comes up. Are we protected? Are we not? Your infrastructure is, of course, complicated. It's not homogeneous. So what about different operating systems, right? Different variations of Windows, maybe macOS, maybe Linux, something else. Also, Marcin mentioned actually, executing the malware itself. It is destructive, right? So how do you do it? How do you do it on a certain endpoint? Are you really ready to run it? Also, what about running multiple scenarios at once? And last but not least, the most important part, maybe, what about getting the results, the actual concrete results that will allow you to measure the effectiveness of your cybersecurity? Now, I spent several weeks on creating a very powerful computing algorithm once we decided with Marcin what presentation we're going to show you. And I had a lot of data, and I've run it through the supercomputer, and it showed me the number that actually reflects the effectiveness of manual approach. And here it is. It's a number 0. And I think it would be best if you could maybe write it down for the future if you would have an idea to do things manually. Now, since I assume we agree that the manual approach maybe is not the most effective one to validate your security, how do we do it, right? And how do we do it in a sensible way, right? Which is, effective, just comprehensive, and just gives us a real picture of the situation and maybe ways to improve it. So a while ago, FireEye acquired a company called Verodin, or a salute company that had a product called Verodin. And for those of you who've been with FireEye for a while, you know that we have a long tradition of renaming products and changing short names into long names. So we now call Verodin the Mandiant Security Validation, but in the interest of time, I'll call it MSV. So Marcin, can you please walk us through the MSV approach and how can we address the issues mentioned before in this presentation with that approch?
Yeah, sure. I was waiting for that. So let's start from mapping our complicated scenario in the clear table, because this is how MSV works. So first of all, you are provided with ready-to-use library of available actions, sequences, and evaluation. And this is the example coming from MSV. So as you can see, all of our 8 steps are mapped to different groups within these groups, you've got different actions. From time to time, the single group can consist multiple actions inside it. So within one click, you can simply assign those actions to different parts of your network and validate the results. At each step, we will also get the results directly from your security controls. So in the web UI, you can find a lot of useful scenarios. This is, again, example of Ryuk scenario. And Michał mentioned a very important part. What about the variants? So in managed security validation, you will find a lot of variants because we are still monitoring the situation. We are observing the attackers from our incident response services, from our threat intelligence. And speaking of which, for those of you who are especially concerned about APT groups, what you can do, you can also integrate MSV with FireEye threat intelligence to get threat actor profiles. So by saying that, I mean that you will receive all of our known tactics, tools, and procedures being used in the wild by APT groups. So you can simply ask, invite them to your environment and play with them on your rules. But how it works in reality, because we are giving some promises, let's try find out how to deploy it. So on this screen, you can see one central point, which is called the director. And the director is a very important part. This is a central console, which holds all the library, of course, but also which is responsible to run any test against your environment. And so to do that, we are deploying another components called actors. So actors, this is the piece of software that is waiting for tasks to be executed according to selected scenario. So as you can see, you can deploy multiple actors within your environment. It also means that there is no need to create any extra lab environment, any testing environment. You can easily go to your production, to production, because we are assuring that everything we do, we are doing only between our actors. So there are several types. We've got endpoint actor, network actor. We've got cloud actor as well. So we can choose what best matches your needs. So we are also calling actors the flexible actor because it's very easy to change the role of the actor within even single scenario. So for any types of scenarios where you've got the initial access phase, defense evasion, or execution, where the attacker is placed outside of your network, you can simply assign this role to selected actor. After running the actions, director is actively communicating with your security stack, which means that we are integrating with your security systems. Why we are doing that? Because we don't want to provide you only with the result like 0-1, the test was successful or not. We want to get a view from the perspective of your security infrastructure. If you would like to move to the next part, of course, you can choose next group of actions and you can reassign the roles simply for command and control or lateral movement respectively. And finally, you can move to our execution phase, which will be for our scenario, Ryuk execution. And to do it, we are introducing the protected theater. This is the element that assures you that you can run any kind of the destructive attack with peace in mind that nothing will be heard inside your environment because we are isolating this environment by many means. Plus, we are able to revert the state of the machine very fast after the scenario is finished. So let's assume we finished our scenario. What's next? So the next phase definitely would be to take a look at the outcomes. So of course, we are starting from the high level overview where you can see which tests were finished with success, which failed. But also you will find few different categories for each task you made. So we are showing what type of actions were prevented, which one was only detected. Did we see any alerts? Plus, is there anything that we missed entirely? So based on that, you can drill down to get the events, to find out which security control reacted, how it was done, and probably what can be done better in the future to improve your security posture. After a while, probably you will run hundreds of actions. So you can create nice dashboards showing the summary of those activities. You can also filter out based on timeline to check how it was done last month, how it works today, to compare, is it a good direction for your security posture in general. Finally, you can open the dashboard dedicated for MITRE. So almost all of our actions available in MSV, they are tagged with corresponding numbers referring to MITRE. So after that, whenever you run those actions, the dashboard will be populated with the results, showing you what is the coverage and how well different security controls are doing with different types of threats described in MITRE. Of course, during such short presentation, I am not able to drill down very much, but we, of course, encourage you to come to our booth to continue this discussion, to ask any questions that you want. And to encourage you to do that, we are offering extra risks. So we've got 3 questions. If you answer whichever of them, you will get some risks. So first question, what types of actors can be deployed within a Mandiant security validation? The next one, how Director is integrating with your security stack. And the last one, how to invite APT groups to your test, to test your environment. So still on the booth.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marcin. When we did our test run, I tried to answer the third question, how to invite APT groups, and I just, I wanted to get some riscos, so I said, I think we just send an email to them and ask them to attack us, but I didn't get any riscos. So just a little hint, it must be a different answer to that question. So summing up, what are the benefits of using Mandiant security validation compared to the manual approach we discussed before, right? So I think the most important thing is changing assumptions to metrics, right? So it's no longer, I hope it's here you are, here's the data, here's what you can do with it, right? And then I've spoken many times to our customers in the region, and sometimes it is very difficult to justify cybersecurity spending in front of business people, right? It's very difficult to assign a certain financial value or to answer the question, how much my infrastructure will improve when I buy something. So here you are, here's your tool to do that. When you automate the process, you can save resources. 8 steps just to do a single simple operation, right? But multiply it by the number of possible variations. You just overload people with manual tasks. You don't want to do that, right? So you can save resources by helping them and automating it. Also very important, and this is thanks to Mandiant's and our Intel organization unique position, right? We're hands-on the latest threats. We see what real APT groups do, right? We show customers how to defend against them. We see that. So when you stress test your cybersecurity infrastructure, it's very important to stress test it against real threats, not just a lab simulation, as Marcin pointed out. You want real bullets to test your vest. Then, no matter how good your manual approach would be, right? Your manual audit, it's a snapshot. 3-4 hours later, a situation might look completely different. Not even mentioning, 3 to 4 days or 3 to 4 weeks. You want to be continuously sure that you're doing the right thing. So there's your tool again. And I hope my clicker will start working again. Here you are. I haven't met anyone that would say, you know what, I actually need more cybersecurity tools because I don't get enough alerts, right? It's exactly the opposite. Just there are too many alerts. cybersecurity tools. There's just so many of them. So by looking at, by doing the stress test, you can actually see what's overlapping, what's doing its job, what's not, and get rid of the ones that are overlapping and are not helping you in achieving your higher level of cybersecurity. And if you really like this new shiny toy offered you by a vendor, now you can test it not only against real life threats, but you can also test it in your particular infrastructure, right? And you can actually see whether buying it will improve the level of your cybersecurity, or will it improve in a way that would justify the spend. I'm really fighting with this clicker now, which means probably we're over time. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Marcin, for walking us through the practitioner part of this presentation. And if there are any questions, we're ready to answer them.
Michael, Marcin, thank you very much indeed. You can obviously answer them on your platform and access you
Yes.
in the expo, which is the place to go. Very interesting. The simple little sort of observer piece comes out of that all of these bad guys, the malware, you have a top table. Of course, the one at the top is actually the worst. At least it is from the user point of view. So that stands the idea of you're not going to give them awards. You're going to give people awards for actually rejecting them effectively. Very interesting, though. And it just shows how complex the system is and how you need to use devices to work for you. You can't do everything manually, which came very clear. We move on. So thank you so much indeed. Coming up next.